All right, welcome back. So earlier, you should have already done the video on the media, and now we're moving on to interest groups. So it's going to pretty much work the same way. It's a much shorter reading. So let's talk about interest groups. Okay, so we already discussed interest groups a little bit. Again, it's pretty much groups of people that join together with common goals in mind, and again, their goal in the end is to influence the government by getting certain candidates elected that support their views, their policies. They'll endorse these candidates. They will give them money and funding um, as a way to help them out. Because if they get elected, that's good for those interest groups. Okay, so let's talk about interest groups. Influencing government. Interest groups use several strategies to influence government. The amount of influence that interest groups have on government is a major issue of concern for many people today. At the same time, millions of citizens rely on interest groups to make their voices heard. Lobbying for support. Okay, so lobbying is a term that I think I've maybe used at times, but let's learn about that. Lobbying for support. Interest groups hire lobbyists, all right, to meet with members of the government and discuss the group's issues and concerns. Lobbyists say that their job is to provide information to decision makers. The information lobbyists provide has been carefully chosen to persuade the audience to take one side of an issue. Lawmakers have to be aware of the bias in the lobbyist message and consider both sides before they make any decision. Again, the bias is favoring one view over another. And obviously, if you're a lobbyist for the NRA, the National Rifle Association, we discussed that last week. Obviously, the information that you give voters, that you give groups of people in general, the audience is going to be skewed towards supporting what the NRA supports. So a lobbyist pretty much is a person that represents those interest groups in meetings, and they will use information, they will use statistics, they will use charts, graphs, whatever you want to use for information in general, as a way to push forward their values and use what they have to get other people to support candidates or, again, political parties as a whole in order to push forward their agenda. And, obviously that helps them in the long run. As we talked about, endorsing candidates. Okay, so let's read about endorsing candidates. During elections, some interest groups may endorse or officially support candidates. Groups choose a candidate to support based on what the candidate has done in the past and where the candidate stands on issues important to the group. Once the candidate is in office, he or she may introduce new bills, support existing laws, or use influence on important committees. In return, the interest group encourages its members to vote for that person in the next election. In addition, the interest group may donate money to the candidate's election campaign. So again, it's a very, when you think about it, it's a pretty simple relationship between candidates that get elected and the interest groups that support them. They try to help each other out because honestly, some candidates should, owe their election into office almost entirely at times to interest groups, because interest groups do play, for better or worse, they do play a big role in who gets elected sometimes. I mean, they're not the only factor. There's obviously many different variables, but interest groups play a huge role in getting certain candidates elected. And again, the candidates that are elected are usually the ones that, for certain interest groups, support their views, whether they've done so in the past or they plan to do so in the future. All right. So we talked about how there were two main ways that interest groups help candidates. They endorse. We just talked about that. And now we're going to talk about raising money. Okay. So, and those strategies are outlined here: inform the public, donate money, and then endorse candidates. Those are like the three main strategies that interest groups use to influence government. Okay. So raising money. Interest groups raise money to support their efforts to influence the government. Some people worry that interest groups can buy, air quotes, buy candidates by contributing lots of money to the candidate's election campaign. Once in office, such a candidate might be more concerned about pleasing the interest group than representing the voters. That happens quite a bit, just FYI. The government addresses this concern with strict rules about how interest groups may collect and donate money to political campaigns. Those that do must form a PAC, or a political action committee, that follows strict government rules about giving money to political candidates. We've discussed, PACs in past lectures, so we have an idea. Super PACs, we even talked about those. In general, they're just funds, that follow certain rules, and the funds go to the candidates of their choice, pretty much. Not everyone agrees about what kinds of rules interest groups should have to follow. Some people fear that campaign financing laws limit the ability of people to support the causes they care about. Others fear that interest groups have grown to have more influence on government than the public at large, just kind of like what I said before. They believe the groups should be controlled. The debate continues as some interest groups and wealthy individuals who support them find loopholes or ways around the campaign finance laws. So, as you can tell, interest groups, when it comes to these PACs, can be very polarizing, meaning you got a lot of people on one end that don't like it and a lot of people on the other end that support it. So that's probably never going to go away, because obviously interest groups do play a big role in how people get elected and what types of people get elected. So until they make more strict rules, candidates are going to use these interest groups to their advantage, and the interest groups are also going to gain an advantage because of the candidate. So again, it's that very simple relationship that these two groups have. All right, so the next time we talk, we will be talking about propaganda, and that will be part C. We finished up part B today, so make sure hopefully you answered those questions accurately, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.